All right, we are here. Post-game show, the more formal one, not the instant reaction. 49ers lose to the Bears 19-10. A few hours later, some of you probably had a chance to punch a few walls, settle down a little bit, maybe not. If not, we'll help you do that. First things first, good news. My dad and I did better in our triathlon than the 49ers did in Chicago. We did a relay triathlon and we won, but I'm not going to rub it in or, I know some of you are upset right now. So I'm just happy that went well because for a lot of you that follow me, I know the 49ers game did not go well. In fact, that was a massive blown opportunity against the team that the 49ers are clearly more talented than. I mean, the advantages that the 49ers had up front in this game were really absurd. I mean, you saw it in the first half. This right here, this illustrates the most to me. The 49ers defense in the first half allowed only 3 net passing yards. So net passing yards you get when you subtract sack yardage from the total passing yardage. So you calculate in a more sophisticated way what a team is averaging every single time that it drops back to pass. Justin Fields at halftime was averaging 0.3 net yards per pass attempt. Because it's only fair to include the sack yardage, right? Especially if a team has a good defensive line like the 49ers. Fields had 3 net passing yards in the first half, 0.3 per attempt. This was the best of the Shanahan era. The only first half that was better than this was 2019 against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers managed only 9 net yards per pass attempt. Or managed only 9 total. On the game, he was like at 1.2 net yards per pass attempt. On the game as a whole, Rodgers back in 2019 was worse than Fields today because Fields obviously took off in the second half, at least enough to give the Bears the lead, because penalties sent everything into the toilet for the 49ers. 12 penalties for 99 yards. If you want a quick, simple summary of what happened today, it was the 49ers were extremely undisciplined. Listen, they had 3 penalties on the defensive side of the ball that extended drives, essentially. 2 on 3rd and long, 1 on 2nd and long. First penalty was a Dre Greenlaw face mask. Second penalty was a Charvarius Ward hold. Third penalty was a Javon Kinlaw hold, a run hold. You don't see those all too often. All 3 penalties eventually turned into touchdowns for the Chicago Bears. They missed 2 extra points, so they only scored 19 points. But in totality, those 3 penalties fueled Chicago's touchdowns directly in this game. So the 49ers have only themselves to blame. Now, if you want to talk about the penalties themselves, you probably want to get the puke bags or the puke emoji ready if you're a 49ers fan. But first penalty, obviously the face mask. That one, God, it was tough for Dre Greenlaw. I thought he took his hand away as soon as he could. I don't even think that he saw that he was reaching around and touching Justin Fields' face mask. Whatever. It was the downstream effect of that play where they didn't cover Dante Pettis at all, where Eric Armstead couldn't get to Justin Fields. That was probably a little bit more frustrating, especially the fact that Dante Pettis got his revenge against the 49ers. But Dante Pettis didn't really even do anything to earn that revenge against the 49ers. It was the next penalty on Charvarius Ward, 3rd and 9, where Ward had to hold Dante Pettis. I mean, just think about that. Pettis never had to be held when he was with the 49ers, but Charvarius Ward held Dante Pettis on 3rd and 9. That led to an automatic first down. That led to the touchdown from Justin Fields to Equanimeous St. Brown. What the hell happened to the 49ers coverage on the play? I saw Hufanga back there. I saw a linebacker back there. I forgot if it was Warner or Alshire or whoever it was. Whatever it was, it wasn't pretty, right? Equanimeous St. Brown behind the rest of the defense. It looked ugly. It was ugly. And to me, it was like, well, these guys didn't have to cover anybody in the first half because the Bears were afraid of throwing it, right? 3 net passing yards in the first half. It's like the 49ers got just stuck in quicksand there in the second half. It's like cement solidified around their feet, around their ankles in the second half. And the secondary just let these Bears wide receivers run wide open in the rain on those plays. Then it was time for the 49ers to rebut. And by that time, the monsoon had started, and everybody's trying to make this about Trey Lance, and this game's not about Trey Lance. A monsoon is not a referendum on Trey Lance's accuracy. I was the first person to tell you throughout all of training camp that, yes, the 49ers need to pay attention to Trey Lance's accuracy because there's some stuff that's off. He's missing some of these deep out throws. He's missing some of the short throws as well. And the accuracy in general is just inconsistent. It's one day good, one day bad. The Trey Lance experience has been volatile. Now, I do think his big miss today was of Tyler Kroft in the first half, right? On that pass down near the pylon, that was a touchdown if it's accurate for Trey Lance. But you can't judge Trey Lance based on the 49ers playing in Lake Michigan over the final 4 or 5 minutes of this game. It just doesn't work that way. We didn't judge, or I guess some people did, but anybody rational didn't judge Jimmy Garoppolo for it last year against Indianapolis, and nobody rational is going to judge Trey Lance for it this year against Indianapolis. I know that everybody feels a compulsion to fire off their Trey Lance takes. They just have to fire off a take. Every little data point has to be something moving the needle far in one direction or the other. Sorry, today wasn't going to do it, right? Today in this rainstorm wasn't going to do it. Today was going to be out the 49ers just playing small ball, executing, keeping the pass rush discipline, not turning it over, not committing penalties. Discipline, small ball. We didn't expect anything huge from Trey Lance. In fact, he might have surprised us with a couple bigger shots in the rain, right? He hit Juwan Jennings down the sideline. I thought a couple of the intermediate throws earlier in the game to Ayuk and Ray McCloud were really nice. Both arrows up, but we weren't expecting anything more from the 49ers in this rainstorm. You got to have to wait till the weather is actually decent to evaluate things. And I'll tell you this much about Trey Lance. What we learned today is that Trey Lance is not good enough to overcome 12 penalties in a monsoon. But we already knew that coming in. Anybody reasonable already knew this. What's under the screen right now? What's under me on the screen? Everybody already knew that to be a truth coming into this game. If you thought that Trey Lance was going to go on the road and overcome 12 penalties for 99 yards and 2 turnovers, a losing turnover battle on the 49ers part, if you thought that he was going to come in as in his first start as QB1 and post a road victory under those parameters, I have a bridge to sell you. It was not going to happen. So that means that by extension, the fault, if you want to assign fault of this 49ers loss, is to the penalties. They were so undisciplined. You cannot expect Trey Lance to be a perfect quarterback given his inexperience and given the situation of this game. So why don't we pump the brakes on that rhetoric? I don't want to spend too much time talking about it because it's just such an embarrassingly bad narrative following a game like this. On the positive note, how about Talanoa Hufanga? I mean, 11 tackles today. Eight of them came in the first half, and the Bears were just running. This guy, he's special. I think that the 49ers, obviously, picked him in the late rounds. Talking about another 5th-round pick who has panned out for the 49ers. And, he doesn't play 4.6 speed. He ran a 4.6 coming out of USC, but he plays like a 4.3 because he studies film, he anticipates, and, what a weapon he's going to be next to Jimmy Ward. And I do think that when I talk about some of those coverage breakdowns in the second half, especially the one to Equanimeous St. Brown, you have to believe that having Jimmy Ward would have helped the 49ers there. You have to believe that did end up costing them in this game because they were confident to just let Justin Fields operate from the pocket in the first half, and he didn't do anything. The Bears were afraid to even try to do anything for whatever reason. Then they finally said, we're going to have to try something because this is not working. And I thought they probably should have tested the 49ers earlier, given the absence of Jimmy Ward. He's kind of the communication cog there on the back end, and the communication wasn't good on some of those busted plays in the second half. So that, from the 49ers perspective, was not pretty. And that's why I put the second half blown coverages right here underneath me on the screen. We'll see if my article or Matt Barrow's article is up yet. Went live earlier today just to appease the masses. Not that many of you watching, probably still sick to your stomach after the game. Yeah, here we go. Matt's article and my article, both similar pieces. I focused a little bit more on Nick Bosa and how annoyed he was. This is Matt's. Mine, I think, is still being edited, so we'll share that in a bit. But if you want to check out Matt's, go to The Athletic. Make sure you subscribe to The Athletic. We get into it there. How the 49ers sank themselves with penalties and gaffes in an opening loss to Chicago. My piece about Nick Bosa, who was annoyed before the game, and then he was annoyed after the game. Before the game, he was annoyed because he kind of just walked up down the tunnel and he saw the rain, and he, with his blank face, you could see a little bit of annoyance across his face. He just walks right back to the locker room. It was foreshadowing to the post-game press conference where Nick Bosa says, this is just a really annoying way to lose. He says, we're going to be okay. And, that's another thing. We have to keep this in perspective right now. And I probably made it, right here. We must keep this big picture. It's 1 out of 17 games. The 49ers were 3-5 last year. They dug out of it. But again, I just watched the rest of the NFL today. I just saw the Titans blow onto the Giants by missing the field goal there at the end. Credit to New York for going for 2 a little bit early on. I saw the Arizona Cardinals get their asses kicked by the Kansas City Chiefs. I saw the Rams get their asses kicked by the Buffalo Bills the other day. And the Seahawks are already projected to be bottom feeders. Combine that with what the 49ers put on tape today, and I will say the NFC West is very flawed. The 49ers aren't behind in the NFC West right now because everybody else is losing. So it's one game. There's still a full old season to go, right? There's still full 16 games to go. It's weird still to talk about the 17-game season. So, any freaking out about this is wholly unproductive. I tweeted late in the game that it would be best if the 49ers just got out of there healthy because the Elijah Mitchell injury, which had happened before then, I think is one of the bigger concerns. Mitchell he's got the burst that nobody else on this 49ers running backs crew seems to have. They like these physical backs now. They're obviously trying to do something a little bit different with the running back room, but it just feels different whenever somebody like Jeff Wilson gets the ball and not Elijah Mitchell. Kind of like the difference that we saw before between Raheem Mostert and everyone else. So you need some speed in that running back crew. And Mitchell definitely has it. He's got that burst. He fits the system well, but he's hurt now. I don't know if it's an MCL or whatever. Shanahan said he initially thought he was going to come back in, then was ruled out. We're going to have to find out what exactly that means. Probably get an update from Kyle Shanahan on the conference call tomorrow. But it's a big, big loss. And it was a big loss in this game for the 49ers. They had Deebo Samuel run again. And he's going to have to run again a lot if they don't have Elijah Mitchell, just like last season for really obvious reasons. So Deebo had like 52, 53 yards today. Trey ran a lot. I mean, why don't we talk more about Trey, though? Why don't we zoom back out? Because we don't know Talanoa Hufanga's actual status right now. When we talk about Trey, we're talking about his development from the pocket in this game, right? And everybody with a reasonable mind about this acknowledged that Trey was going to be missing passes. We saw this throughout the offseason. We know the amount of inexperience in North Dakota State. We know that the mechanics still have work. I wrote 3,000 words with Steve Young the other day about how the mechanics are the gap that the 49ers must bridge. And this was a monsoon. I mean, we knew that he was going to miss passes. Steve had a great quote, Steve Young, the other day. He said, Trey might miss 4 the first game, but the key is to miss 2 the second game, and then cut that to 1 the next game, and then 0 by the 4th game. That should be the goal for Trey Lance. It was already on the table that he was going to be missing passes. So the fact that everybody acts surprised by both that and by the fact that Lance couldn't overcome 12 penalties is patently ridiculous, right? People need to put stuff in perspective, think big picture. And the big picture in the context of Trey Lance is this guy just needs to get better every week. And the 49ers around him need to get better every week because the penalties absolutely butchered them in this game. I went through the penalties. I have them here in a notepad. I think I do. Oh, I have them on my other computer in a notepad. Let me bust open this other laptop. Give me a second. I'll kind of lean out of the frame. Chew some ice. Okay, I have it on the second laptop right now. I could read off of this sucker right here for you. We'll go through the penalties. All right, the 12 penalties for the 49ers. You guys ready for this? Elijah Mitchell, false start. This is the first half. Tabor Pepper, an eligible man downfield. That one didn't end up hurting the 49ers because Wishnowski had a good punt. Then he had another good punt right after that one. Dre Greenlaw, unnecessary roughness. That was a bad call. What was he supposed to do on the slip and slide? Didn't end up hurting the 49ers in the first half. Brandon Ayuk, offensive pass interference. I think that one might have hurt the 49ers in the first half. Kevin Givens, offsides. Then I believe that then we move to the second half. So that's 5 in the first half. 7 of them come in the second half. Number 6, Dre Greenlaw, face mask. That one hurt big time for the 49ers. Now, at the time, it looked like the Bears were just walking on thin ice. It looked like, maybe the 49ers will have a chance at a defensive touchdown since they're staying on the field. And Tashawn Gibson almost had that big interception, right? He jumped that route. Fields looked terrible. But if you give an offense that can't move enough extra chances, eventually, a broken clock is going to be right twice a day. And the Bears only needed to be right twice today to win this game because the 49ers only scored those 10 points in the rain, right? So the Greenlaw face mask really hurt the 49ers. Pettis got his revenge after that. I mean, that's like an alternate universe 49ers nightmare, right? Justin Fields, who they didn't pick, connecting with Dante Pettis, who they did pick and cut for a 51-yard touchdown that changes the course of a game and a torrential downpour. I mean, that's the stuff that 49ers nightmares are made of, and it happened today. Number 7, Jake Brendel, ineligible man downfield. That one was declined. Jimmy Ward, Charvarius Ward, sorry. Charvarius Ward holding was the 8th penalty. Oh, Dante Pettis strikes again. It was 3rd and 9, and Charvarius Ward held Dante Pettis. Extended the drive. Touchdown came soon thereafter to Equanimous St. Brown, and that was where the 49ers just decided that they were uninterested in covering St. Brown. Number 9, Spencer Burford, false start. He had spoken about concerns with some of the noise. He was a rookie. It happened, though. 49ers offense starts crumbling there. Number 10, Javon Kinlaw, defensive holding. That was a tough call. You hardly ever see it called, right? Daryl Johnston on the broadcast agreed with it. It came on 2nd and 11 in the red zone. It gave the Bears a new set of downs. They scored very shortly thereafter on a run. So all 3 of these defensive penalties between Kinlaw, Charvarius Ward, and Dre Greenlaw turned directly into Bears touchdowns. Then you had Jordan Mason holding, and finally Trent Williams with a false start. That's 12 penalties for 99 yards. That won't cut it. To give you some perspective on that, that was the 4th most penalized that the 49ers have been in the Kyle Shanahan era. They're penalized against the Kansas City Chiefs in 2018. That was the Garoppolo ACL game, 14 times. And then they were penalized 13 times in 2 separate games, one in 2018 and one in 2017. Today was 12 times. So the top 4 times, or the top 3 times, were all losing teams, 2018 and 2017. 2022's TBD. Time number 5, ranking lower, 11 times, was the season opener of 2019. They were penalized 11 times at Tampa Bay. They won that game. It was ugly, but I think that there's something we'd learn from that. The 49ers were penalized 11 times in a game that was the season opener. So the season opener is often going to be a time when you're knocking off some rust, right? You have to work through some of the flags, and maybe that's where the 49ers are right now. They can hope that they get 2019-esque results this season, that they surge forward from this point, stop shooting themselves in the foot. We'll see if that happens. I'm just pointing it out. But in the past, it's either been really bad teams penalizing themselves for the 49ers under Shanahan, or it has been a 2019 team that was just rusty penalizing itself. Which path will the 49ers take? 1 second. Why don't you guys take a look at that? I've got to take care of something. Why don't you guys take a look at Matt Barrow's article right up on the screen, and I'll be back here in just a second. Just have to look at something up on the screen as we continue. All right, we're back. We're good. Okay, so we must think big picture in this situation. And big picture, as far as the penalties go, that can go in one of 2 directions. The 49ers can be a terrible team, which I don't think they are. I think they have a lot more talent than they did in those other heavily penalized years in 2018 and 2017. Or they can turn this around and they can surge. And that was an ugly win against Tampa Bay to open the 2019 season. It's a game that the 49ers, if a couple of other things had not gone their way, wouldn't have won. And people would be sitting here saying very similar things. Oh, my God, the 49ers with a good roster lost the season opener because of a ton of penalties, right? So it just goes to show you that you can never take road wins in the National Football League for granted. I remember last year against Philadelphia, the 49ers won ugly in week 2, and everybody was all up in arms. And I said, guys, a win's a win. You fight tooth and nail for every single one of these in the NFL. The guys on the other side are paid too. And we don't even know how good the Bears are going to be yet this year. I mean, again, today was a monsoon. The Bears, for what it's worth, could be a lot better than they were last year. They probably are. They've got a better coach, I think, in Matt Eberflus. Justin Fields is in his 2nd year. You would think they would make some progress along the offensive line. You know, nice interception there by Eddie Jackson. Maybe he's going to have a little bit of a resurgence. We don't know where the Bears are. But the bigger point is that every single win, no matter where a team is valuable in the NFL. And this is why people shouldn't have scoffed at the Philadelphia win on the road in week 2 last year. I mean, Philadelphia ended up being a team that won quite a few games last year, right? They won at least 500 or 9-7. I mean, they made the playoffs, I think, last year. They lost to Tampa Bay in the playoffs. So speaking of Tampa Bay, they're going to be starting here against the Cowboys any minute now. So hopefully I can take you into kickoff. Maybe the first few minutes of that game will be good. Yeah, I could get it on right now. Hey, Google, put on NBC on YouTube TV. Okay. There we go. Heard me. We'll get that game on. I could be able to track it right here as we talk. So a win is a win and a loss is a loss. And you try to get the win at all costs, and the 49ers couldn't get it today. And it did cost them, the loss did cost them Elijah Mitchell. So they could hope that Elijah is going to be healthy moving forward, because I really think that they need him in the backfield. But I think if you're talking about a bright spot, Talanoa Hufanga is one. I'll be honest, I thought Javon Kinlaw was a bright spot for the 49ers as well in this game. First snap of the game, he's delivering a pressure, moving against left guard for the Bears. Third snap of the game, he's teaming up with Samson Ebukam for a sack. Nick Bosa gets a sack against Braxton Jones a little bit later in the first half, but Kinlaw looks spry. He did leave the game after he hurt his ankle, but he came back. Sigh of relief that it wasn't his knee. The 49ers defensive line still has as much potential as I thought before this, and that's great news for this team. The issue was that, again, they stayed on the field way too long. And at secondary, especially without Jimmy Ward on the back end, on some of those extended plays, if that, Justin Fields, got to give him credit. I mean, he could scramble, right? He got away from the pass rush. That secondary, just like any secondary, can't cover forever. The 49ers have to do a better job in coverage against anybody, and against the team. Have to do a better job with a disciplined pass rush, because the secondary can't cover forever. What they have to do is a better job on plays, secondary on plays like the Equanimeous St. Brown touchdown. That's on the secondary. The Pettis one, yeah, somebody needs to be in his vicinity. But, Bosa blamed the defensive line on that play. He said that they were operating a boring but disciplined pass rush in the first half, and they lost a little bit of their discipline in the second half. Armstead took the dive, missed Justin Fields. He spins out, lofts one to Pettis, who's wide open. 49ers fans throw up in their mouths all around the world, right? I mean, it's tough. That happens. But if it was only that, then the 49ers still win this game. It wasn't only that, though. They turned around, came back, penalized themselves again on third down, Charvarius Ward, and then they didn't cover at all. And I think that had something to do with not having Jimmy Ward, right, when they hit Equanimeous St. Brown in the end zone. So, that was that. If you want to talk about, positives in this game, I think the special teams unit didn't do anything to shoot the 49ers in the foot. They looked fundamentally sound. I know Tabor Pepper had that illegal man downfield penalty, but to me, that's not something, I thought that was a little bit of a fluky penalty. I didn't think that was indicative of bad coaching in that unit. I thought that the coverage units were good. I thought Mitch Wishnowsky was good. Robbie Gould obviously made his field goal attempt. It was his only field goal try. It's a game like this. We know rain games. We know Kyle Williams. We know that history. Games like this can really go south in special teams, and the 49ers held serve there. But they didn't hold serve defensively in the second half because of those penalties. And I think, overall, big picture, Kyle Shanahan has repeated this throughout the course of this calendar year. The defense and the special teams and the discipline of this football team outside of Trey Lance is going to have to be the locomotive that pulls the train, period. Trey Lance is a 22-year-old, first-time starting quarterback. The 49ers have been explicitly clear about the need to support him and be the locomotive that pulls the train. So all of a sudden, you talk about that all off season. Oh, we have a great roster. We can, rush the passer. We'll smother opposing teams. We'll be disciplined because we've got all these veterans. We're a really good football team. We're the best spot ever for Trey Lance to develop on the fly because we can give him this runway. You talk about that all off season, and then all of a sudden you hand Trey Lance the football and you say, hey, Trey, we're down 19-10. Go bring us back in a monsoon. That's what the 49ers did today. Months and months of talking about how they're going to set this up for Trey Lance to be great. They gave him a 9-point deficit in a monsoon and said, hey, go have fun. That's how bad the team performance around Trey Lance was today. Now, is Trey one of the reasons why they only had 10 points? I suppose so. He threw the interception to Eddie Jackson. He missed Tyler Kroft early on. But again, we're operating with built-in variables that we already knew. We already knew that he was going to miss some passes. We already knew there's probably going to be an interception in this game. What can't happen is Deebo Samuel can't hit fumble in the first half. Again, the defense and other offensive players can't combine for 12 penalties for 99 yards. You keep that at a reasonable number, say 5 penalties, 1 turnover, boom, all of a sudden the 49ers win this football game, right? Those are the variables that are very much more under your control. Trying to get Trey Lance to play like a Pro Bowler in his first career game as QB1 in a monsoon is not the variable that you can like easily control. Because everybody's going to want to blame the quarterback on like the knee-jerk reaction channels like YouTube, like right here, right? But that's just not how this is going to work. The 49ers have to get better around Trey Lance. And that's what, I want to put this up there. We must think big picture. This is 1 out of 17 games. They're going to come back next week, and they're going to play Seattle. It's going to be at home. They need to beat the brakes off of Seattle. I don't think Seattle's very good. We'll find out on Monday night just exactly how good Seattle is. Right now I'm taking a peek over to see just how good Dallas and Tampa Bay might be. But it's week 1. Weird stuff happens week 1. I think the Packers got annihilated by the Vikings. I saw the Chiefs just destroy the Cardinals. I mentioned that Titans-Giants game. The Raiders-Chargers game was really interesting to me. The Raiders tried to come back there. Chargers obviously have a stacked roster. My main point is, I know I didn't go through everything, but my main point is the week 1 is week 1. I remember the Packers lost like 49-3 to the Saints last year. So it is no time to, be walking out onto the ledge right now, because this is the NFL season is long. Week 1 is weird. If I had any criticism for the 49ers, I thought they should have played week 3 of the preseason as much more of a dress rehearsal, especially given the fact that there were 17 full days in between the end of the preseason and week 1. They didn't play it as a dress rehearsal, and it looked like the 49ers were still in preseason mode today. That would be my main criticism. Other than that, there's still plenty of time to turn this ship around if you're the San Francisco 49ers. All right, let me put this second laptop away over here. Dak Prescott has the football for the Cowboys. Why don't we take a look at what you guys are saying in the chat section? Ooh. Okay, you just CT Law, Dave. Come on, thank you for the tip. Come on, 46% completion percentage. Kyle can't look at his record without Jimmy. What is the cutoff for Lance? Next week they will get crushed. Lance cannot handle that defense for sure. All right, well, so you're saying Lance can't handle the Seattle defense that hasn't been good in 6 or 7 years? I agree with you. If Lance can't handle the Seattle defense and they get crushed, then Lance probably shouldn't be the starting quarterback. But there is no data so far to indicate that Lance can't handle the vaunted Seattle defense that's ranked in the 20s in the NFL in each of the past like 4 seasons or however long it's been. I mean, the Legion of Boom is broadcasting now. Richard Sherman is on Amazon broadcasting. Looking at completion percentage today in a monsoon again, like are you guys like serious? It's not. Justin Fields didn't have a good completion percentage either today, and they won the football game. You don't look at rudimentary stats when the conditions are what they were and when you have other context. There's other context, right? Yes, at some point, Trey's going to have to get it done regardless of the context because people are going to get impatient. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I get all this and all that. But we have one game under our belts. This is one game. There's one game in the rain where his team was penalized. I mean, Trent Williams has been in the league for like a decade, right? He came up and said, hey, most games that I've been in where we've committed 12 penalties for 100 yards, we have lost. Trent Williams said, I can't remember a game where we committed that many penalties and lost. We already knew that Trey needs work with his accuracy. It's just really, really biased against Trey to point at his accuracy issues when he's throwing with a drenched football in Lake Michigan. This is not Madden. It really isn't. And I said the same thing about Jimmy Garoppolo last year. You could not judge Jimmy Garoppolo, and thank God the 49ers didn't, but you couldn't judge him based on accuracy issues in a monsoon playing in the San Francisco Bay against Indianapolis. And they stuck with Jimmy last year. Of course they did. They stuck with him at the Chicago, and they turned their season around and ended in the NFC Championship game. Thank God the knee-jerk reactions didn't win out last year. So with Trey, the knee-jerk reactions are even more extreme because I feel this game was even worse conditions, especially toward the end. The 49ers team helped Trey even less with the 12 penalties, and it's his first start. This is a raw quarterback coming out of North Dakota State who had 318 pass attempts in college. He's 22 years old. Everybody's been trying to prepare you for this. Don't act surprised when he looks a little bit rough in his first start. All the other circumstances notwithstanding. All right? So just relax here a little bit. It's no time for knee-jerk reactions. I know that you are frustrated right now, but small sample sizes have never done anybody good. And this is the tiniest sample size that there is. There is no need to panic. I see Leon Ridge just posted that. How's Dak Prescott doing? Hopefully better than when the clock ran out on him in the wild card game last year. Looks like they're driving the ball. They're right around the 30. That's right around where they were when that game ended at Cowboy Stadium. I think they're moving the same way on the field too. 49ers should commemorate that spot on the field. That was crazy in Dallas last year. Yeah, Mike McDaniel's Tua looking good. Then we had the all-timer quote from Tyreek Hill about Mike McDaniel, who, by the way, should probably get his coach's name right. Let me show you this. This is going to make you guys laugh. If you guys need a laugh today, let's make this bigger. Okay, this is Tyreek Hill. The sunglasses are awesome. It's Tyreek Hill on Mike McDaniel.
Man, like, hey, man, McDaniels, he's gonna need a wheelbarrow, man, for his nuts to carry around, man. Cause he got a lot of football on this, you know what I'm saying? So, what's he called by him? Man, like, hey, man, McDaniels, he's gonna need a wheelbarrow, man, for his nuts to carry around, man. Cause he got a lot of football on this, you know what I'm saying? So, what's he called by him?
All right, we could let that play on repeat, and it would still be hilarious. I mean, between the glasses, between what he says, that Mike McDaniel's going to need a wheelbarrow to lug those around. It looks like they're liking their new head coach in Miami, product of the Kyle Shanahan system. So good stuff there from Tyreek Hill. Let's see if my article is out, because that way I could share it with all you guys. Go back here. Load it up for you. Oh, yeah, here we are. Nick Bosa. Got to tweet this out, too. Nick Bosa, an annoyed Nick Bosa laments the 49ers' mistakes, an ugly loss to the Bears. So this is where I put this sucker on Twitter for everybody to see. How about Brandon Ayuk today, too? I thought that he was good. Aside from that offensive pass interference, I still think Ayuk's going to have a big year. Deebo Samuel running people over into the end zone, especially if Elijah Mitchell's unavailable for any period of time, he's going to have the same role as last season. They could really use George Kittle back. They probably will have him back next week against Seattle. Articles tweeted out, by the way. If you want to check it out, I hope you do. Then it is in the comments section and also in the chat section right now. So go ahead and see that. The link is up there on the screen. Can Hufanga play QB? Nah, if only he could. It would make stuff so much easier. Dallas score there. Dallas get a field goal. I missed it. I got it on the big screen over there. And Deebo was running well today. Deebo was running people over. You want Deebo to run heavy. Somebody's complaining he looked heavy. Deebo's a physical player. If he's not heavy, if he's not, he doesn't have that muscle, if he doesn't have that girth, just working on the opposing defense, then he's probably going to be more prone to injury. Hufanga was a QB in high school. Yeah, he was, actually. Tolano Hufanga is a great guy, too. Yeah, Dallas did score a field goal. Thank you. All right, guys, if you have any questions, I'm going to let them roll in here on the bottom. I may not even put them up on the screen, but I'll be answering them. So I appreciate all of you. Why don't we talk for a little bit? It's 5:30 Pacific time right now. Check out the article on The Athletic. And I will put, as you guys answer your questions, I will encourage you to subscribe to The Athletic. Oh, water tastes good today. Yeah, 52 yards rushing for a wide receiver is really good. You know what else was good? The 49ers overall rushing numbers. I mean, some of you guys are unbelievable. Deebo Samuel, 8 carries for 52 yards. Yeah, that's damn good. 6.5 yards per carry. That would rank number 1 in the league. I've got a guy on here asking me if 6.5 yards per carry is good. My answer is that would be number 1 in the NFL. Deebo Samuel ranked number 1 in the NFL amongst all running backs, if you counted him as one last year, with over 6 yards per carry. So yes, that's very good. Thank you. Trey Lance, 13 carries, 54 yards. That's also good, 4.2 per carry. The 49ers, 37 carries, 176 yards, 4.8 yards per carry. That is excellent. In fact, when you see those numbers, 37 for 176 for 4.8, and you consider that the Bears ran for 2.7 per carry, it is shocking that the 49ers lost this game. That running division means that the 49ers, I think, would win this game 98, 99% of the time. But again, they shot themselves in the foot with 12 penalties for 99 yards. I don't know how much more simply to put this, but the offensive game plan and their strength was on full display. I mean, Trey even hit some deeper shots in the rain today, but the penalties killed the 49ers. I know that you want to blame a single player. People love blaming a single player. So a lot of times the quarterback, I don't know if it's a jealousy thing or whatever. 49ers fans are worse than others, I think, when it comes to this. But it's hardly ever a single player. And then you get a game like today where it's very clearly the 12 penalties for 99 yards, and you still want to blame another player or a single player. You want to be mad at Deebo. You want to do all this. Yeah, Deebo fumbled. That was his big sin in today's game. I agree the fumble was bad. But when we get to rhetoric like, 52 yards isn't good. He had 8 carries for 52 yards as a wide receiver. When he's doing both of those things, yeah, that's unacceptable. That's a good stat line. Dre Greenlaw didn't have a great game. Dre Greenlaw was trying to tackle David Montgomery early. It looked like he was trying to tackle a water balloon. That wasn't good. It was tough. The conditions were tough, and the 49ers struggled through them. Greenlaw's been the 49ers' best tackling linebacker for years now, and he missed that tackle, and then he had 2 personal fouls. One of them I thought was a bad call. The second one was a tough break. I don't think it was a bad call, but it was a tough break. I don't think Greenlaw did anything egregious today, given all the context. But it's the NFL, and you mess up, even if it's not fully your fault. Sometimes those screw-ups are going to come back and cost you, and they did cost the 49ers today. So now we're getting to see Tom Brady go to work over there on the other screen. Nobody is blaming Trey. We're just saying Trey played awful. He didn't play awful. Played a mediocre game. Awful was what Fields was in the first half. Awful was 0.3 yards per net passing attempt. 0.3 net yards per pass attempt. That was awful. 4 or 5 interceptions from a quarterback. That's awful. Trey Lance playing in a monsoon behind what was a very inexperienced offensive line, picking up 54 yards with his legs and moving the ball with some chunk plays with his arm in totally non-ideal conditions, despite the fact that his offense kept on penalizing itself and his defense wasn't helping at all in the second half. He did some stuff well. And when you do some stuff well, you didn't play awfully. I don't think he played well. I don't think he was awful. Stuff doesn't have to be black or white. It could be on the in-between. When teams go out and lose, their fans do this all the time. They get emotional, and then they just want to say, this guy was terrible, this guy was terrible, this guy was terrible, as if that changes the outcome of the game or somehow changes the fact that they lost. No. Simplifying stuff just to embrace an easier acceptance of the loss, that doesn't, help us analyze the loss in a productive way. And in a productive way, Trey Lance did some things well, did some things poorly. And guess what? I was never going to judge him in a game where he played in Lake Michigan. Neither was Kyle Shanahan. And if you want to know how the 49ers are thinking about this, that's why I like you guys coming on the show, because I can guarantee you that this is the way that Kyle Shanahan is thinking about it. He's not going to judge Trey Lance and say, he played awful based on a game where Trey was far from at the top of the list for the 49ers' reasons for losing. Yeah, the Niners gave the Bears. Yeah, the Niners did beat themselves today. And great teams don't do that. So I would say that right now the 49ers are a great team. But you know what the good news is? These seasons are 17 games long. The 49ers played 20 of them last year, including the playoffs. And when you look at the totality of these seasons, there are going to be games where certain players play worse, other players play better. It'll flip around. Then you'll get a couple where everybody plays well. Then you'll get a couple where everybody's terrible. It fluctuates. And what you need to do is find the law of averages. You need to find that steady, smooth water. You need to find cruising altitude. And you have time to find it because you got 17 games. So the 49ers need to find cruising altitude, probably quicker than they did last year. Thought last year they pushed it to the very end, to the very last chance to get cruising altitude. But people who act like there are not going to be any bumps in the road just don't know what they're talking about. You're being reactionary fans. If you want to be a smart, casual, not casual. If you want to be a smart, non-casual observer of the game, realize that there's going to be ebbs and flows. Realize that you have to get the cruising altitude, and it's only week one. Sometimes it's going to, take a little while to get there. I don't think anybody should expect the loss of the Seahawks next week. No, somebody was asking that. And again, it's still funny, scrolling through some of these comments. So I'm sorry, but Lance was not good. It's like you're trying to prove a point that it was black or white, that he was either not good or good. I'm not saying either. You can accept the middle. I don't know why people have such a hard time accepting the middle. He was mediocre today, as we probably expected him to be in those conditions. And the 49ers expected him to be in those conditions. And guess what? They needed the team effort around Trey Lance to get this done. And at halftime, it looked like they had that. But they didn't get it done, and it was mainly because of the penalties. All right, guys, cool. Make sure you subscribe to The Athletic. That's my article about Nick Bosa. I had a video in the article. Maybe we could play it. This is Nick early before the game, walking out, sees the rain. And as soon as he sees the rain, he's like, oh, nope. A little bit of annoyance on his face and turns around. And I think that illustrates the mood today because he was annoyed after the game. He said that he was annoyed. But he also had the quote that I think can wrap this up really well. This is it right here. We're going to be all right. We've been through worse. We'd obviously like to get a win, but it's just annoying to give away a game like that. So be annoyed all you want, but don't make it more than it is. Everybody like the video, sub to the channel, sub to The Athletic, check it all out. I'll be back on soon to dissect more of this. All right, take care, guys.